As we move into the first segment of our agenda today, allow me to introduce Elvi Lahoni, Director of Digital and Innovation Director at Natixis Bank. She's also the chairman of the ASIFMA, short for the Asia Securities Industry and Financial Markets Association. Elvi, I see that you're on. Can you tell us a little bit more about yourself and what you're currently working on right now?
Hi, Paul. Hi, everybody. I'm very happy to be with you this afternoon, and I hope you will enjoy the session. So thank you. Yes, before starting, I went with a disclaimer because I think it's important. So my background is a mechanical engineer. So I first starting my career as building helicopter at Airbus. The reasons why I'm mentioning it is because I think now, and for today's sessions, we are going to talk about innovation. We are going to talk about challenges, and I think one of the first challenging is actually being able to use this, people like me having this diverse background, in order to foster innovation and digital transformation within the bank here. And to that extent, Natixis kind of did a bold move in hiring me more than 3 years ago now. So just to give you a bit more how I came from Airbus to Natixis. So I ended up in China 8 years ago. I was working in strategic management consulting for Roland Berger. And meanwhile, I was a co-founder of French Tech, which is a non-profit in tech. And I'm a tech lover. I'm a profound tech fan and startup entrepreneur lover. So this non-profit is aiming at promoting entrepreneurship, especially for a foreigner in China. And that's how I get into the whole innovation channel, both on a process perspective, but also on a technological perspective. Because if you think about it, in 2014 or 13, it was the very beginning of Bitcoin, of blockchain, and AI was really rising just at the very beginning. I entered Natixis. So for those who doesn't know Natixis, it's a corporate investment banking. We have actually 4 activities. The first one is investment banking, traditional and global market. Second one is insurance. Third one is payment. And then we also have an asset manager here. And they basically asked me to create the APAC digital and innovation practice 3 years ago. And first I was, okay, I have no legitimacy to do this, which was, of course, compared to my background. But then I think the CEO, and that would be maybe the first key takeaway of what I would like to bring here, he was convinced that having somebody with a very diverse background, equipped with the strategic knowledge, could bring something different, could bring another perspective. And he actually put faith in me, and I joined the company. So I'm based in Hong Kong, and my work is mainly for the region. So I have 2 mandates, one mandate for the region, where I am looking to build partnerships specifically with fintech, because this is really what I want to bring. And also this is a core, I would say, conviction that I have, that building with strategic partner and also with fintech is the right way to support and to accelerate, if I would say, our transformation. And I'm also working on customer experience, customer insights, which is much more done internally with the data team. And this I'm doing it for the global here. So this is basically what I'm doing for the past 3 years here.
Thank you, Elvi. I mean, you are someone, so you have been in the banking industry for quite a few years now, by the looks of it.
Yes.
So from your experience, right, and can you share a little bit more about some of these innovation challenges that banks are currently facing, particularly in this APAC region?
Yeah, when I joined the banking industry, let's say, not specifically in Natixis, because I think all of these challenges are quite common for all. I thought, coming from Airbus, which is a very heavy industry, and I had already, because I was in charge of innovation also there, facing some challenge, I thought it would be very different. But guess what? It is not. It is not. It is not that different. And that's kind of interesting. I'm sorry, somebody is not on mute, and I can hear the background. I think it's I'm gonna name it, but I think it's Christian. Yeah, thank you. Paul, I don't know if you remember, but when you first enter internet. So for me, I was 14 years old. You connect, and basically for the time you click and the time you connect, you would have 2 to 3 minutes, probably even more.
And lots of sound.
A lot of sound, yes. It's very exciting. And it was okay to wait. It was okay to spend your time and to wait for a couple of minutes. This time now, it's unbearable. Nobody would ever accept this. And I think the first thing that we have to face, and specifically even more here in Asia, is the rising expectation of customer. The reasons why is because now we don't want to wait. And when I say we, I include myself. I'm not only talking about my customer, also talking about myself as an end user of banking industry, right? We want to have a seamless journey, mostly digital. If we think about China and Hong Kong, it would be, or even Singapore, it would be mostly mobile first, personalized, and we want this to be super super seamless, because the customer loyalty, especially in Asia, is very difficult to get, to capture, and to retain here. And I think this is one of the biggest challenge I am facing as a head of innovation, but the whole industry is facing, and that requires us to transform ourselves. That really requires. The second one is definitely the competition. I mean, I've been living in China, had the great pleasure to live in China for 5 years. At the very beginning, WeChat was just an instant messenger. And when I left, it was 1 minute is 1 million payment transaction on WeChat. I deliver my baby in Beijing. I paid with WeChat Pay. So on the hospital. So it was really, on the day-to-day life platform, and not only on instant messaging. So I think this increasing pressure from startups, from fintech, both, and this is very important, and this is a point that I also would like to highlight it, for the retail banking, but also for commercial banking. And let me tell you one example, for instance. Now, in my company, we're also having, of course, a lot of global market activities, and we are facing a strong development of all the securitized / digital asset platform here. And this platform, we have to take them into account. We cannot, pretend that they're not existing, because they are the futures, because they reply to a growing demand in our customer. So I think the second aspect, the fact that more and more fintech players, they, at the very beginning, they were considered as a very small player, but now they become giant, what we call big tech. We cannot pretend they're not there, and they're putting extreme pressure on us, because by being digital native first, usually cloud-based first, usually data-driven first, then of course they have a super value proposition to present to both their retail customer, but also their commercial customer here. And then the last one, we often talk about legacy. Yes, of course, legacy, when we talk about system, and I think further within the webinar, you will see this within the presentation. Of course, legacy systems is something that we have to deal with. I would say, for me, again, system is easy to change. It's investment, okay? We now can go to cloud. We now can go to that lake. We now can use everything that is technologically at disposal to actually improve, increase, optimize our legacy system. But when I talk about legacy, I also want to include our process, our people, the skills. And this is very important, because I'm sorry, we cannot change our people. This is not going to work. So, for instance, for Natixis, this is a 16,000 employees company, and one of my role is to make sure that our people, our skill set, our process evolve in the right way, so that they are in line with the innovation challenge. What does that mean? That means having everybody, when I say everybody, it's literally everybody from top management to entry level, understanding the power of data, understanding what the difference between data visualization, data analysis, machine learning, and so on and so forth, understanding why cloud is now a new way of working. I wouldn't say new way, but a safe way of working, and it's different than probably what they had in mind 10 years ago. And in terms of process, is really also something that is very specific about innovation, which is just trying. As you said, this is a regulator, a sector that is heavily regulated. And so the trial and the probably fail, which is, if you try, you fail, it's okay. That comes with it is not a real cultural aspect that is commonly developed within the company. And I think this is something that I am actually pushing forward, because this is only this kind of change that will make the continuous change within the company here.
Wow, thank you so much for summarizing the whole the challenge that the banks are facing. I mean, you mentioned rising expectation. You talk about competition of fintech companies that were small yesterday, but they are huge today, and legacy baggage, right? Not just in technology, but in terms of the people, the process, and the scaling.
Yeah, and
Bridging the skills gap.
Paul, sometimes we underestimate the people and the process. And really, I'm very happy because today we are going to see a lot of, during the workshop, a lot of quick insights and how to make it happen. I'm not going to tease and I'm not going to disclose, but I think this is very important because sometimes, and I see it with my colleagues, people are really focusing on the technology, but actually the technology is an enabler. Having the right problem statement, having the right product owner, having the right process. This is, of course, with an underlying technology that is secure, that is safe. But we do have provider, that can provide this. This is the only way to make it happen.
Right. So speaking of the technology side of things, right, what role do you see data, AI, and the cloud, which you mentioned briefly just now? What role do you see them playing in this new, competitive landscape?
Well, easy. This is a Pokayoke combo. I mean, if we don't have, for me, this is again, this is a combo we need to have. If you have only one and you don't have the others, it's not going to work. So let me try to explain myself here. For the data part, this is what we have. This is our competitive advantage, right? This is the data that we have on our customer, and this is our capacity to analyze it, the data with the right level of software engineering here that will enable us to create new product, new services. So if I put it in, let's say, a very easy word, the data is really us. This is really what it will bring us to the edge. Now, for the AI and the cloud, this is all the enabler we need in order to be at stakes and in order to leverage that edge and to basically being able to deliver the solution for our customer. On the AI perspective, I mean, for me, when I think about artificial intelligence, I see three main aspects here. The first one is this is the way to boost generation revenue, because we will have more personalized, more right to the market, straight to the point product, thanks to the data that we have, thanks to our customer data that we have. Second, of course, is lowering cost. And we have a lot of automation, reducing cost. And this is what artificial intelligence brings. And the third one, and I think for me, this is one of the most exciting part. This is uncover opportunities. Because with machine learning, you actually can know what you didn't know before. And that's the power of machine learning. And when you get this into understanding, and when you really get the power out of it, usually you start with a project that is about automation, then you really put some personalized insight, some customized insight, and then for the one who really grasp it, they will go into new generation leads and cover leads, and that's super powerful. Now, if you want to make this, forget about your on-prem. It doesn't work. It just doesn't work. I mean, and I'm working with fintech. 95% of the fintech I'm working in, they all 100% cloud-based, SaaS or private cloud, but they are cloud-based. So for us as a financial institution, if we want to partner with, the key competitive, let's say fintech now, we have to go to the cloud. We have to have this infrastructure, not to mention that this is the only way to have a faster time to market and to have the scalability we want. And that's something that also, Paul, I want to highlight. I think for my job, for instance, when we develop projects, so I'm working currently with a Singaporean fintech on a distribution debt platform, and my role is to try this fintech here on a local scale, but of course my role is to make it for the global. So the scalability is very important, and the fact that this fintech is only cloud-based is I think it's super powerful, because that is the only way for me to scale super fast and at a cost that is very minimized here. So now the challenge is to make all of this cloud, AI, and data works together, and most importantly, to have the whole chain of I would say the banks, i.e. the IT security, the cyber security, the compliance, working together to make this project live.
Wow, LV, thank you so much. This is really, really rich. We just have a minute left, so maybe how would you, do you have any advice for our, participants today? I mean, what tip would you give to a younger version of yourself, LV?
First, have a top management commitment. This is the key. Understanding business problem statement. Myself, I'm a tech fan, I'm a geeky, but I always only reply to business problem statement. So having a strong business sponsor, replying to a business process, sometimes business problem statement does not require any technology, and it's nice and fair enough, and I'm still taking it, right? Sometimes it does. And then when we work with fintech, include right from the beginning the whole chain of the project, i.e. IT security, cyber security, compliance, and then the business. The reasons why is because change management needs to start early, right? And that's what we are driving here around the table, all of us.
Thank you so much, LV. Really appreciate taking the time to join us today and giving
That's
us
my pleasure.
joining our fireside chat. And so basically what you're saying is focus on the business requirements and the business needs, front and center. Thank you so much, LV.
Thank
All
you.
right. So thank you. So permit me to introduce Kitman Chuang for the next segment of our program. He's the program director at IBM Analytics. Now he will talk with us on tackling the innovation challenge in banking with data and AI. Over to you, Kitman.
Thank you, Paul. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, you sound great. You sound great to me.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you for the quick introduction, and LV, that was a fantastic presentation. It's going to make my life a lot easier moving forward. The topic today really, we were discussing cresting the digital innovation wave. And I actually really like that imagery of cresting a wave, if you will. So I took a couple of photographs out there surfing, right? And the idea is you are going to ride a wave and you're going to thrive and you're going to have a great time doing it, or you're going to get swept away and you're going to suffer quite badly, actually. So the imagery really is about being able to adjust the organization and start riding that innovative wave to success. And this surfing analogy is actually particularly nice because wave doesn't end just after the one. There might be a brief period of calms after the wave, and then the next disruption is going to come, and we always have to be ready for that. And one of the things I really want to start with today is I want to start with a little bit of an interesting factoid, if you will. Now, imagine I walk up to a group of people sitting in a large room, and I said to them in 1958 that, by the way, your average lifespan in this room is 61 years. You will live for 61 years. And then fast forward 50 odd years later, in 2020, I walk into a similar auditorium in another population, similar characteristic, and I tell them, by the way, your lifespan is only going to be 18 years now. Now, if I stand there and I ask the group, are you willing to make a change? Are you willing to change the way you live, you work, the way you act, you function to extend that life expectancy? I would hazard to guess that that group would tell me, absolutely, Kitman, what it is that we need to do. Now, what population am I talking about? And many of you probably are guessing already. The population that I'm speaking about is specifically the Standard & Poor's 500 index companies. When the list first came to be back in 1957, the 500 companies that's there, today only 37 is left. And in fact, the same survey conducted in 2007, there were 86. And today, there are only 37 of the original members on that list. In fact, the study does show exactly what I stated before. 61 years average lifespan for a company back then, and now is 18 years or less. Right? That is the kind of disruption and the kind of things that we need to be looking at and facing day in, day out. Now, you're probably thinking to yourself, well, why are we talking about life expectancy of company? And when we hear to talk about data innovation, well, let's think about that for a second. A simple statement for you to consider. You are a data company now. Okay, just look at that statement for a second. And this is what we meant by that. IBM, we really believe that we are all data company now. In the 90s, we sell products. In the new millennium, we start selling products and services. And in 2010, things become more and more customer-centric. And I think the theory that we're putting forward is that today, every company is becoming data-centric. That is no longer an option to do anything else. Yes, we are in a talk about banking industries. And I will honestly beg you to take a step back and think. And you guys are CDOs, so you probably agree with me anyway, because I have a captive audience. But I would say that a bank is no longer about keeping money. It's no longer about anything that has anything to do with a bank. To be a successful bank is to be a successful data processing company. You process transaction better. It's not about offering another credit card with a particular reward program. Everybody has that. The main differentiation is which one among us are going to be the leader in understanding our customer, understanding risk, understanding market condition, to serve the customer better, to allow our employee to act smarter, serve our customer better. That is what is going to make us be successful, not the fact that we have the most number of dollars kept or anything along those lines. I often use that analogy for even logistic companies. I often say DHL, FedEx. The difference is not about how many trucks. The difference is about managing information flow to make sure things get done in the right time, in the right sequence. And from that perspective is where I'm bringing that notion of the importance of a data-centric practice and the ability to stay agile and be data-centric in today's world is the key to survival for any companies out there, banking or otherwise. I'm not the only one saying it, right? Gartner, Forbes, different kind of analysts are saying similar things about how important it is to leverage data to gain that competitive advantage. I don't have to repeat this to any of you guys anymore. I'm sure you're more than aware, but there's that one statement to the right-hand side where we talk about the need for smart data instead of big data. And in a little bit, we're going to get into some statement about challenges that we face each day. And I'll bring our attention back to this point in a few moments. Now, if you consider that data is what's fueling innovation and AI is probably at the very forefront of that transformation, then it's important to understand what data and AI and how that links together to deliver the outcome that we want. And I would even contradict myself a little bit. And I want to offer a thought for us to consider as we get into the workshop. I actually don't like to use the term digital transformation very much anymore. Transformation has this implication of starting as one and becoming another, right? And that's very much what transformation, at least in my mind, it conjure up that image. But the reality here is that it's about evolution. It's a digital evolution that we're going through. It's a data evolution. It's a company and business evolution that we're going through. And we will continue to have to evolve if we want to survive. And the survival is not about transforming to become one thing and staying there. If you take a look at that wave, that, if we go back to the S&P lifespan 7-year rolling chart, you notice that there's a bit of a rolling wave. And when I talk about the analogy of using cresting the innovation wave, that's, in fact, historically, that's what's actually showing us, is that the lifespans tend to expand and contract in waves because there are actually major disturbances in the marketplace that drive changes that, the 90s, the 2000, 2010. These things are driving changes in industry across all industries, not just banking, not just IT. And as it drives those changes, you see a expanding and contracting lifespan, but overall, lifespan's getting shorter because the disruptive forces are coming faster and more fierce. So digital evolution, evolve, survive, and thrive is what we're really talking about. I really like that wave analogy because of that specific reason. Now, all CEOs in the world are saying the exact same thing. We need to go after better decision making, we need to leverage AI to help our company make smarter decisions, be it risk or growth or any kind of analysis that they would like to do. And more importantly, successful company tends to engage their customer by sharing insight about their customers as well, offering wealth advice, offering insight as to what they can do differently to achieve their financial goals. Now, just as important as providing, investment risk analysis to your investment analyst. So sharing that data in a broader sense and leveraging it to engage customer on a just-in-time basis is becoming the cornerstone of banking success, if you will. So how do we go about doing that? Everyone knows that we need to do it. How do we go about doing it? And quite often, I'm hearing that there are some challenges that we would often face. And for the open breakout session part of the discussion, I would like us to spend a bit of time together to maybe talk about some of the challenges that I have heard before, and I'll share some of those with you here. First one, my data lake is not very useful. I talked about big data versus smart data, and I think there was a lot of hype when Hadoop came about. Everybody jumped onto it, and when the hype curve is over, and the hype curve is finally done, I think, let's say in North America. And the realization is that Hadoop, while it had great promise as the big data solution, the solution, it wasn't it. It wasn't the only thing that you need. And once you get over it, it's really smart data that's necessary. It's not a single data lake, but it's data lake that serves your business purpose. So my data lake is not very useful. That might be something that you would observe in your organization. AI is a hobby with limited adoption within the organization. Again, something that I have seen and I've heard where we have one team that's very excited about the innovation, and yet the broader business struggle to benefit from it. Regulation are choking innovations. We hear that a lot. Data sharing, always a challenge. My company is struggling to fill data scientists and AI developer positions. Again, skills issues, we certainly see that as part of the challenge that I see. And to LV's point, the other aspect of it is to be more inclusive in this data economy and this AI economy to bring perhaps non-programmer into the collaborative cycle. How do you collaborate with business smart, tech smart, programming smart, data science smart? How do you bring multiple disciplines together so that you can evolve as a company? Because it is not, as LV has said this very eloquently, it's not just about the technology, it's about the people, the culture, the process coming together that evolves, and that's where you get to that success stage. So how do we go even beyond that? How do you introduce data science and machine learning and AI skills to non-tech people? We don't have enough good data, right? Data silo is a problem. Data sharing is an issue. We know that. So to do large-scale machine learning models with accuracy, that's a challenge. Well, we don't have enough data for good models. I jumped ahead for that. My apology. And then AI requires too much hardware, compute issues. My data center is a finite size. LV pointed to cloud. One aspect of solving that particular problem is distributed computing. But how do you do that and maintain governance? Again, another challenge that we often struggle with. And then my business user are not convinced that AI is as good as human can be. Right, that is a cultural change that that we also may want to take a look at. Now, I'm sure there are many different kind of challenges that you can name, but I've created a series of these challenges just so that we can have some talking point when we do the breakout session. And when we start getting into that aspect, I hope that you will jump in, offer your perspective, and kind of help us drive out some of the key learnings from here. I will end this portion by saying that I'm here to learn from you as much as anything else. In fact, this magazine, CDO Trends, and what Paul's talking about is amazing because you guys are also the trendsetter, right? Some of the trends that I've listed here are just a subset of what the challenges that we all face. So in the discussion session, I hope to maybe spot a couple of new trends as well. With that, I'll hand the mic back over to Paul to kick off the next portion.
Thank you so much, Kibben. Thank you for putting the whole banking landscape, and what's happening out there into perspective. So, as you mentioned, next up, we want to do a breakout session, but that's later. Before that, we want to do a poll right now, right? So as Kidman mentioned, we want to hear a little bit more about some of the challenges that, you might be facing or you might be experiencing even right now. So the poll should open on your right-hand side of WebEx right now. Now, if you don't see it, click on the three-dot menu on the right-hand side of the app and select poll. This should bring up, okay? So the poll is there for me. It should be for you as well. So select the top 3 challenges that your organizations is facing. Okay, so it could be, data lake is not very useful. AI is a hobby and of limited adoption and impact in your organization. Could it be regulations, right? They are
Paul, I
choking
apologize.
innovation.
Having a repeat in there is an ENFR repeat. I apologize for that.
Okay, it's also on the slide as well, right? So yeah, so you can select just 3. And once you have done that, you can click on the submit button. And then, we wait for a while to process it and we should be able to see the results. Okay, we have some results coming in already. Thank you very much. Okay, so select the top 3 that comes to the mind. Right, so the ones that jump straight to the, the one that you say, aha, this sounds like my company or my organization or maybe some other organization that I know about, right? Could it be hardware, which is option G? Or could it be business users are not convinced of the value of AI? Okay, we just wait a little while more for some to complete their responses. Okay, just a few more are in progress. Okay, so right after this, we're going to break us up into breakup sessions. So okay, so about another 30 more seconds and we'll close the poll and look at the results. And then after that, we go into the breakout sessions. Now, this is randomly assigned. I mean, in a normal face-to-face meeting, it'd be so easy for everyone to speak out, right? So, but in a virtual setting, we wanted to go into different breakout sessions so that we have a chance to hear from all of you in terms of the challenges that you're facing, and what you're facing right now. Okay, so the results are out. Wow, it looks like it's evenly spread across almost all areas, right? I think one can see that nobody agrees that AI requires too much hardware. Presumably, everyone is using the cloud. I think the main challenge is we don't have enough. Can't see the second portion. We don't have enough data for a good model. So that looks like the biggest challenge, followed closely by my data lake is not very useful. AI is a hobby of limited use, or regulations that's choking innovation. So thank you for your participation. So I think right now we want to go into the breakout rooms to have a more in-depth discussion, right? To hear from you in terms of the challenges that your organizations are currently facing. Okay, so I hope everyone had an engaging and fruitful discussion. So right now, we want to take a little bit of time to hear from Kidman and Daryl, right? I mean, we have heard from the various participants in the breakout rooms, and they will summarize and run through some of the key points that they have heard in their respective sessions. So maybe Daryl, would you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. Can hear me clearly?
Loud and clear, Daryl.
Yeah, can see my screen now?
Yes, we do. We can see it.
Yeah, okay. We had a very good engaging discussion earlier. And some of the key points are shared by the participants. The first one is about one of the participants shared that they do not have enough quality and quantity data for them to drive insights. Some of the initiatives right now is they are starting to build a data lake, right? To start collecting the data. Okay, that's one of the things that they're doing now, right? Another participant shared where he's from the wealth management banking area, where currently right now what they're doing is they're using data to support their RMs to do the engagement with their clients directly, but what they are looking for towards is, eventually they want to be able to send such recommendations and also, and send it directly digitally to the client, but regulations is preventing them from doing that, right? And to do that, there will be challenges for them to be able to do it now. But that's what they aspire to do eventually, to be able to engage directly, right? Another participant shared about they are not short of data, but how do you be able to make for more use of the data that they have, um, especially the systems data that they have collected. There's lots of them, but how do I make use of it to be able to design new products, to be able to engage the clients more effectively? All the alerts and stuff, event data that they get directly from the client, right? Yeah. So I mean, these are some of the things that was shared. Yeah.
Thank you, Daryl,
Yeah.
for summarizing everything up from your breakout room.
Yeah.
So I want to hand over the time to Kidman, who will share on his end, as well as I believe he has prepared some demos, data demos rather, for us to dig into. Kidman, over to you.
Thank you, Paul, and thank you, Daryl. Again, the conversation time's never enough. As I like to have a chance to get a little bit deeper with. Always want to get deeper with the participant. Again, just like to say thank you for sharing your ideas in terms of one of the biggest challenge, and so we can actually have a discussion around some of that. When it comes to data challenge, one thing that's really interesting that was brought up during our discussion was that as a company start to grow and begin to want to acquire more customer, oftentimes the struggle can be that there's simply not enough internal data yet to make maybe those models that they would like to make. So sourcing data from external sources is one of the things that was brought up. How do we actually source external data and then transfer the learning back to our organization in order to understand the overall demographics better in our banking industry? So, I can see that type of a problem both from a growing bank or any bank that's, for example, entering a new market, digital bank that enters into a new market, not necessarily having local data set. How do we actually leverage data externally? Where do we source that data? Unstructured data continue to become a challenge, and so on in terms of what the initiatives would like to do from that angle as well. Some of these things I'm going to try to address and maybe talk a little bit more about. I wish we had more time to explore some of the other areas, but on a short digital workshop, sometimes a bit more challenging. Paul, any additional instruction before we jump into the next segment?
No, I think it's all good. I think we're looking forward to the data demos that you have planned out.
Okay, let me just jump back into a couple more slides. So I put these slides together with anticipation that some of the things that will come up during our discussion will center around these particular area. Ease of use, the experience where people can find data, do self-service, and begin to explore data for themselves, to begin to collaborate with their colleagues, for line of business to work with data scientists, to work with data analysts in a collaborative manner. So I think that collaboration is a big part. I think LV Driveout brought up a few really good points. There are a lot of really smart people that come from multiple different disciplines. And the idea of success for the bank really is to be able to bring together fresh perspective, bring about the smart from the bankers, bring about smart from the data scientists, leverage the smart from the data analysts together to formulate new solutions. So I think ease of use is a big aspect. Finding data, being able to find that data in an enterprise scale and getting access to it is always a key part. So having ability for auto discovery and so on, having data virtualization so we can start accessing data without moving it. These are some of the key components that's necessary. But also the flip side, the balancing act between ease of use, self-service is, of course, governance and security. right? You want to make sure that everything is governed and secure when it comes to creating a data fabric on your platform. So from that perspective, I think that's some of the other areas that's critical to success. And at the same time, we started talking about cloud, right? The reality is, while banking industry is still heavily regulated, reality is that many leading forward-thinking banks are experimenting, if not moving significant workload to the cloud, with, of course, the aforementioned governance and security in place, with all the necessary protection that the bank needs in order to move some of that data set. But the reality is, things are moving to the cloud, and it's going into a hybrid cloud environment. And one of the things that at IBM, at least as a strategy, we want to make sure that your workload is portable, your machine learning is portable, your learning that you extract from the data set residing in different cloud, if you will, can be brought back into a central location and can apply to different things. So one of the things that we're always looking at is has to be data and AI delivered with self-service, delivered with governance and security across multiple clouds. And that's kind of the strategy that we've been engaging in the past few years now. Now, to do that, we've brought together sets of cloud packs. If you remember earlier on in my first slide, there's a bunch of surfboards, right? When you go surfing, there's different surfboards for different types of conditions. And if you will, the analogy goes here is that on your IT, on your enterprise platform landscape. And one of the things that IBM is doing is to take a platform approach to solving the problem of data, AI, and hybrid cloud. What we're doing is we're bringing in a set of microservices on a combined platform that our client, our customer, can activate to solve very specific problems. And in a way, we've kind of classified those problems into particular areas, such as automation, data, security, application, and then, of course, management, as in IT management, AI ops. So the specific part that we're going to get into for this demo, if you will be focusing around the data aspect, because this is the data and AI talk, but there is a bunch of different surfboard, if you will, that manages other part of this overall platform. Now, with that in mind, let me talk about Cloud Packs of Data. So that's the surfboard that we're going to be demoing, if you will. A couple of new things that I wouldn't be touching, but I do like to draw your attention to, is the notion of an enterprise catalog. That is something that is very important in any data management today. In order to use the data, you must then first find the data. So finding the data that's trusted is a really big part. Another key value that we do bring to market is the notion of data virtualization. This is the ability to access any data anywhere within your infrastructure without moving it using a SQL statement. This includes NoSQL databases as well as SQL databases. So that's the capabilities that allows people to preview data and start finding the materials that they need in order to start working with it. Now, the data catalog, data virtualization, and the policies and rules engine actually works in conjunction together. When you do find the data and you access it using data virtualization, all data protections automatically applied on the platform. Credit card number will never be seen by anyone who does not have access to credit card numbers. Regardless of which database it lives on, regardless of what part of the data of the IT infrastructure it exists on, it will always be protected. I will draw out one final thing before I jump into the demo, is this notion of federated learning. Federated learning is a new feature that we're bringing to the platform that I am quite excited about. I hear a lot of challenge about not having enough data in the organization to conduct proper machine learning studies. And that usually is not quite the case. What it is data exists in silo, and data cannot be visible across multiple organizations potentially. And what federated learning does is actually allow data scientists to send the model to an external data set, only learn, and then bring back the learning without actually ever revealing or bringing back any data from the destination that the learning was conducted at. And federated learning is a new way of actually looking at conducting machine learning in multiple organizations. For example, you can use federated learning to learn to do a segmentation model with Singaporean client as well as Malaysian client, bring the learnings back to the centralized location without actually moving the data across border, for example, to kind of create a more powerful and robust model. Now for the demo, I'm going to do something called auto AI, and I'm going to jump into that before I completely run out of time. I will say one thing, when I do these demos, the environment that I'm using is publicly available to all of you. I will have a slide later on to show you where you can get that, if you can take a screen cap, or I can send that out to Paul and get it out to you guys. Everything that you see here, you can try for yourself. I'm using an environment that's publicly available. All you have to do is request for it, and you can have a play environment of your own. So I actually requested for this environment yesterday, and I mentioned something called Auto AI. And Auto AI is the tools that allow us to start creating machine learning model without knowing how to write Python code. I'm just going to quickly demonstrate this. Inside Cloud Exadata, every collaboration is managed as something we call a project. So if I go into a project, if these things will let me get into all my projects, this is an encapsulation of everything that you would do with your team, so multiple people can collaborate on it. And it's an encapsulation of all asset, data, machine learning model, different ETL job can all be stored in a single project. You can collaborate around it. You can grant permission in this manner so that when someone is actually creating this project, everybody is actually working in conjunction in a single data set. Now, in this case, I'm going to do something called an auto AI experiment. And I'm going to just go ahead and select and create a new one. And I'm going to try to do this really quickly. What auto AI does, as I mentioned before, is allows us non-programmers and non-Python user to appear a lot smarter than we are and start exchanging ideas with our data scientists. So I'm creating one of these projects. It's very simple inside the tool. And now what I need to do, of course, any machine learning, you're going to need some data. So I'm going to just select something within my project. I can import some as well, and this can also be a database, but usually I like to just get some of the data from inside the project itself because it makes my life a little easier from that perspective. So I'm just going to use this data set here, just a CSV file. This is as easy. It could be anything like a database connection. It could be any kind of a table. I have imported this file last night as part of this demo. Once it goes in, what it does is it goes through an auto discovery process. The system look at the data set and start looking at the different columns that are available. I'm going to do a churn prediction in this case because it is churn data. So I'll select churn as the column that I want to predict. And all I have to do, now there's a lot of details I can get into. I can start understanding the different types of classifier that I may want to use, binary classifier, multi-class classifier. These are all models that can be there. I can start changing some of the settings, but in the interest of time, I'm just going to go ahead and run the experiment per default. Now, once I kick this off, what the system is doing is actually doing all the data engineering necessary, all the model selection, all the sampling of the data set that's necessary to conduct a machine learning exercise and build the necessary models. This takes about 4 or 5 minutes. So in the interest of time, I'll leave it running and I'll show you what the actual output looks like. If I go back into my project, I have ran this last night or early this morning. As you can see, this one's completed while this one's actually pending and running in progress. So I'm going to go into the first experiment so you can get a chance to see some of the asset of what actually comes out of the back end of this. Once the machine learning is actually done, what you see is different machine learning pipelines. These are different runs of different models with different fine tuning. And it actually recommends, based on accuracy, it ranks the 8 different pipelines that it ran. The best pipeline that was executed happens to be pipeline 3. And if you want to understand what pipeline 3 is, you can in fact go into the pipeline comparison and take a look at why pipeline 3 was selected to be the best. So a data scientist can have a look at this and say, okay, pipeline 3 seems like a reasonable thing. Pipeline 3 basically built a model that predicts churn, right? This is actually the output. That's all the work that I have to do. And I have 2 options. I can actually save this as a model that I can deploy for real-time scoring, or I could save it as a notebook that I can use and further refine my machine learning. And this is something unique because I can actually save this as a notebook and then pass that notebook to my data science team for further analysis and for further study. Now, in the interest of time, I'm not going to get into too much more detail. I see Paul's getting a bit anxious in terms of how much time I've taken. So I am going to pause. I'm going to try to get back here to see if still running. This will finish in a few more minutes, but maybe I'll hand the floor back to, maybe I'll go back, do a little wrap up. If we have time, we'll come back and see the results, okay? So quickly wrapping up. That was a demo we just saw. It is by Forrester Wave. It is the leading enterprise insight platform. Again, you guys can all try this. Your data scientists can try this for themselves. There are environment available, and I can make available exercises with instruction on how to explore and how to use the environment to try different things. And you can try everything from ETL job to building a warehouse to building machine learning model and managing those models on a single platform. Lots of customer has already tried this and actually has seen quite a lot of success in terms of reduction of time to market, reduction of cost of ownership, as well as innovative capabilities that they're very excited about. I will leave the screen up for seconds for you guys to take a look at. You guys can get advice, can try the tools for yourself, can do a business value assessment to see the ROI. IBM is really changing. We want to make sure that you can experience everything for yourself rather than having someone present to you. You can try everything for yourself and on your own, if you will. I can bring some of the slides back later if you guys are interested, but I will quickly end on saying that if you want to get more information and maybe organize a workshop around some of the things that I've presented and maybe get into a bit more detail, I have left my colleague Suresh's email up there on top. You can coordinate workshop to take you through a data ops journey, which is building data fabric for faster data delivery, or machine learning model ops journey, which will help you build new models, drive trust and transparency, and drive compliance in your AI practice. And with that, I will stop and hand the floor back to Paul before he gets angry at me.
No, I'm not going to get angry at you, Kitman. So thank you, Kitman, for sharing. And for those of you who are interested to get your hands on the demo that he has shared, so maybe it went by too quickly and you want to just take your time to explore that, we will be sending you the link to that as part of EDM within a couple of days. So keep your eyes up for that. But in the meantime, we have a little bit of time left, about 10 minutes or so for some questions and answer. So if you look at the demo, you've heard Kitman present, you heard what Elvi shared earlier on, and you have some questions, right? Feel free to punch out your questions into the chat box. So at the bottom right-hand corner of the webinar app, click on chat, just key down questions, and I'll get to that. But in the meantime, I have some questions for Kitman and Daryl, right? So one consideration that, as editor of DSAI, is that trusted AI is not emerging as a major challenge when it comes to AI adoption. What advice, can the team share about addressing this particular issue? Maybe Kitman or maybe Daryl?
Maybe I'll take a stab at it first, and maybe Daryl can jump in if there's more to add. I think trusted AI is a hot topic, right? And trusted AI, to me, there's two aspects. In fact, I sit on a AI ethic committee within IBM, and I do participate in the Singapore side as well in terms of some of the Veritas project, some of the MAS initiative as well. Maybe learning as much as anything else. I think it starts out with regulatory compliance, which is legal and the bare minimum, and then it becomes an ethical question, right? Where we need to start building ethics into what we do. And then finally, I think at the highest level is to actually build that trusted AI piece. And legal requirement and ethical requirement are bare minimum for trusted AI. Trusted AI is a practice where we get to a point where the user and the data owner, if you will, actually trust the processing of the AI in terms of making decisions and the advice has been given. And to do that, I think fundamentally require a significant amount of investment from the AI practitioner to build transparency and accountabilities into their product set. And transparency and accountability are the first two steps. also, I think it's critical that the AI explain and teaches. And I'll use an example here. For example, if someone were to come into a bank and apply for a loan, and the loan was not approved by an AI, it's not good enough just to say it's not approved, obviously. It's not approved because of what reason. But to build trusted AI, I think it needs to be that the AI will then turn around and explain to the applicant what changes can he or she make in his or her financial situation that will get that loan to be approved, for example. So it's about sharing of insight as well, because when you share insight, you build trust. And that's one of the things that we really strive to do when it comes to our machine learning model on the management side. I've done a demo on how to build, but when it comes to the management aspect, we have invested significantly, and we've actually open sourced a lot of technology in trying to build that kind of AI models, where it doesn't just stop at rejection or approval. It doesn't just stop at audit, but it actually goes beyond to say, in order for you to become approved, these are the things that you need to change in your circumstance. And I think that's how you build trust, is when you are able to show the artificial thought process that from which the decision was made, then you build trust, because then you build understanding between the AI and the human user. That's kind of how I see it anyway.
Well, I mean, that's pretty interesting. So, I mean, so the worst case that can happen will be AI as a black box, that no, and no reason why, right? So the best case that can happen is when you give some insight to it, right? You explain the why, but you also explain the how can you change the situation around.
Yeah, it's one of the things that our research team really found to be the driving factor behind building trust for AI is, in fact, building that understanding between the user and the AI itself to offer advice as to how you can change the outcome. That's how you ultimately drive trust, I think. At least that's what some of the research we're doing has shown.
I mean, maybe I can add a bit because I'm working with more the Singapore Computer Society in kind of coming up with a certification for AI ethics, right? And I mean, yes, you know, of course, the trust the portion is very important. But I guess, you know, especially for banks right now, right, I think it's a highly regulated industry. We are also looking at certain parts of the entire process around, you know, there's the internal governance that needs to be set up. What kind of organizations needs to be put in place to govern the entire AI development end-to-end journey, right? And you know, data governance is already a very mature practice within banks, right? Most people have their kind of practice, but AI governance is new, and we are also putting in place a kind of practice that can then how to say, you know, add on to what data governance practice that you already have. Right, so it's the internal governance process part, the operational management part of AI ethics and governance. That and it's a very holistic approach where now people can actually get certified to be a full-fledged AI ethics and governance practitioner. And we actually have launched actually a course in NTU, right? And people can actually sign up to get be a full-fledged AI ethics and governance certified professional practitioner. Right? Yeah.
Got it. Thank you so much. Yeah. That's most interesting to hear. Yeah. So I think we have time for one last question. And you know, machine learning requires a lot of data. I mean, we all know that, right? But the issue is getting at the data that we need can be a challenge. And we heard it during the breakout session just now, right, Daryl? There was mention of, you know, we have all the data, but how do we organize it into a useful way? Or how can we find the meaningful bits that we can, you know, focus our business on? So what are some technologies that could help with this data agility? Maybe Daryl, you want to say something?
I think just now in the demo that Kidman showed, I think he showed very briefly, but you know, there is a catalog portion that Kidman mentioned that is very important, that when we bring data into a data lake, Like, the challenges people faced 5, 6 years ago, they got all the data in the data lake, and some of the participants also say that, hey, we are not short of data, right? But we don't know what data we need to use to generate the insights that we need to get, what products we need to next develop, right? So a combination of, yes, we need to catalog the data in a way that it can become useful information, not just data. And at the same time, when Kidman did the demo around auto AI, right? A lot of times the AI practitioners, they don't know where to start, right? What feature should I use, right? And that feature selection can take the most time, right? Because you don't know where to start. You've got hundreds, maybe thousands of features, and auto AI comes into play where you actually say, hey, I don't know what feature to select. Let's put them all in, right? I can put 100 feature, and auto AI is a way for you to narrow down, right? The feature that might contribute to what you want to get, right? So a combination of the cataloging and using the auto AI feature can help and save the data scientists a lot of time to getting the results they want.
Yeah. And
All right, thank you.
maybe I'll
Daryl.
add a little
Kidman,
bit.
sorry.
Yeah, I'll add a little bit to that as well. And as Daryl mentioned, some of the things that we are doing in the platform is to leverage automation and machine learning for machine learning. So, for example, when we are talking about building the catalog, one of the greatest challenge around data management is building that catalog because it's a very tedious process. So we're introducing a significant amount of automation built around, in fact, using AI to classify data automatically. So instead of manually cataloging the data, there is an auto catalog feature that will actually do auto catalog for you. Auto privacy, auto SQL, auto AI. It's a series of automation and AI driven capabilities that we're bringing onto the platform to make all these tasks easier. I think the need, for better data quality, better data catalog, the need for machine learning has been there. The issue is that it's quite tedious and it takes a long time. So there's a lot of focused effort for at least on our parts to make sure that we make those tasks a little bit easier and we kind of remove the tedious component and move the human to a governance and a policy setter versus a policy enforcer type of role. Someone who actually set the policy rather than someone who actually has to work on implementing and enforcing the policy, if you will, around the governance process.
Right. Thank you so much, Kidman. And thank you, Daryl. I mean, our time is almost up, but maybe just want to invite Kidman to briefly share. I know you showed the slide very briefly just now, but what are those participants who might be interested to deploy data and AI within their organizations? What options do we have for them, and who can they contact, Kidman?
Let me just quickly bring back the screen. That way, in case you need an email address, you can take that down. Now, there we go. I hope you guys can see it.
Okay,
so, yeah, just sharing the screen. My colleague Suresh is standing by. He's an architect that Daryl and Suresh actually work very closely together, and they're both banking specialists when it comes to data architect and data and AI architect on my team. So both of them will be able to help us in a significant way in terms of organizing the workshop. The data ops workshop focuses around creating an enterprise-grade data fabric about delivering data to the people that needs to use it in real time with proper protection. That's what the data ops workshop focuses around. The ML ops workshop focus on a little bit different angle, which is more towards the data scientist organization and start looking at model ops as a end-to-end practice. It's something that's a little bit newer compared to data ops and DevOps. Effectively is about taking data scientist output and bringing it to the IT professional so that we can bring it into production. So it's that interconnect and collaboration between the data science team and the IT operations teams to then deliver machine learning models, kind of take it away one of the topics we talk about, AI being a hobby rather than a productionized practice. Model ops, it's primarily centered around how do we bring AI out of the small pockets of innovation and make it a enterprise-wide strategy, and that's kind of tooling underneath that will support the process that allows that to happen. So those are 2 workshops that are available, and I think strongly encourage you, if you guys are interested, do get in touch with us. Love to maybe get into a deeper session, provide a better demo, if you will.
Thank you so much, Kitman. Thanks for sharing. And once again, thank you for attending today's virtual workshop by IBM and CDO Trends. We hope you learned something valuable today, or at least gain some insights that will help you with what you're doing in terms of data and AI within your respective organizations. So thank you for coming, and we hope to see you at another event soon.